C4's CBP Bitcoin resources. So today we're going to be talking about what resources C4 has to prepare for the Certified Bitcoin Professional exam and what resources are available that are not from C4 that you can also use to prepare for the exam or just to learn more about Bitcoin because it's awesome. So I'm Jessica Levesque. I'm the Executive Director at C4, and I'm really excited to talk with our CBP committee members, Dirk Anderson, Rodney McInnes, and Anita Posh about what we're doing and what we offer and where you can go to learn. So thanks for joining today. Why don't we start with Dirk, our committee chair. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Dirk Anderson, and I've been the committee chair for a couple of years now. I've been involved in Bitcoin professionally for about a little over 4 years now, and as the Chief Technology Officer at Salt Lending.
Awesome. All right, Rodney, will you give us an intro? Who are you? What you be?
I'm Rodney. I am the COO and AML Compliance Ninja at Outlier Compliance Group. We are a Canadian AML compliance consulting firm. I've been in the Bitcoin space like closing in on 10 years at this point, and still have a healthy obsession.
Is there such a thing as an unhealthy obsession? If there is, don't tell me.
Not when it comes to Bitcoin.
Okay, cool. Anita is our most recent CBP committee member, and this is her first live stream. So thank you, Anita, for joining the committee and for joining the call today.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me to the committee. And this is, yes, my first live stream, and I'm here in Harare, Zimbabwe, and happy to join you. I'm in the Bitcoin space since early 2017, and since then I've been doing a lot of podcast interviews. You have my own The Anita Posh Show. I'm the author of a Bitcoin book, and also I'm the founder and executive director of Bitcoin for Fairness, which is doing a lot of educational work on the ground in the global south, where I believe that people need Bitcoin the most. But of course, Bitcoin is needed by all the people everywhere globally. And I'm still also, after 5 years, completely driven by Bitcoin, and I find it fascinating and world-changing at the same time.
Yes, agreed. It really is. It's incredible, and what you're doing is amazing. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the resources that you have, Anita, a little bit later as well. So for anyone new who's watching, we're going to start by just giving a brief history of C4, just how we got to where we are now and why we are people that you should maybe listen to about what resources are out there, both from us and from others. We'll be talking about resources that C4 has that are free, resources that are paid from us. We're a nonprofit, so that is something that helps us to be able to continue to do the free education. And then we'll also be talking about other resources outside of C4 that you may find useful either in studying for the CBP exam or just to learn more about Bitcoin, because like we've said, it's awesome. So C4 is a nonprofit. We've been around since 2014, and we started because there was no way to gauge whether or not somebody really understood Bitcoin or not. So Michael Perklin, one of our co-founders, and Vitalik Buterin, who's the founder or the creator of Ethereum, came together and created the Certified Bitcoin Professional exam. And so Joshua McDougall, another co-founder of C4, was instrumental in that as well. And the three of them and then additional people started to come in and create this subject material to kind of create something so that people could prove that they understand Bitcoin. And so that has led us to having different exams and standards, but the CBP is still our baby, and we're excited because it's also available in Spanish as well. And that's something we'll talk more about as we get through this call, but how it's important to us to be translating the exam into different languages in our materials, because as we know, English is not the only language that people need to understand this in, and it's extremely important for adoption to be increasing the number of languages that our content is in so that more people are able to get certified and understand why Bitcoin is something that's revolutionary. So that's our history. The CBP committee itself was formed in 2019 at our blockchain training conference. And since then, the committee has gone through, looked at all of the CBP questions, all of them, gone through, seen, are they good questions? Should we change it? Has anything changed? What, new BIPs are there and whatnot? And so we follow along with what's changing and update the exam to mimic that. So we are obviously passionate about this, and that is how we got to here. I'll stop rambling. It's probably about time, but I do think everyone else should start jumping in so we can talk a little bit about what we mean when we say CBP and what we have available for those of you who want to learn about Bitcoin.
I can't believe it's been 3 years that we've been
Of
hanging
fun.
out. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that at all. I remember being in Toronto at the time when the CBP became a thing, and I remember I'm gonna put air quotes around it, the study guide that was provided at the time, which was like a bullet point list of here's 10 to 15 topics you need to understand. Go find your own information, and like frankly at the time finding the information wasn't terribly difficult because there wasn't a whole lot of people putting it out there. So what was out there was relatively trustworthy and pretty good. That being said, we are no longer in that stage. Information is very plentiful on Bitcoin at this point, and it's hard to kind of dig through the noise and find the quality. So the training kind of delivery method that we've worked on has moved away from just a bullet point list that didn't even have curated links or anything like that. It was just topics to something that's much more fulsome. We had a book that we kind of produced that's kind of replaced the previous training guide, which kind of covers most of the elements within I shouldn't say that. It covers all of the elements that are within the exam, and is a kind of an ongoing pursuit as you do one thing and the next month it's out of date. So it's something that we try to keep on top of, and because of that, we've got other avenues of presenting the information, which I'll let Dirk go over.
Well, I just wanted to start with the study guide that Rodney was talking about, which is where I think a lot of us started. And when we first got our CBP, this was the full extent of what was provided. It was basically kind of a list of go learn about these things. If you want to pass the CBP, you're kind of on your own. Just go learn about these things. And now, as Rodney was talking about, we do have the full-blown CBP exam prep book, which you can order. And I did want to just throw in there for everybody that is not necessarily super familiar with us. I'm going to kind of assume that you are if you've managed to find your way here. But C4 stands for the Cryptocurrency Certification Consortium, and you can find all of the resources here at cryptoconsortium.org.
I think, can I jump in real quick, Dirk? I wanted to say also, whenever we're talking about our resources or any other resources out there, like Rodney said, there are a lot available now, and it's important to always do your own research. And I know that phrase is thrown around a lot, but what we mean by that is make sure that what you read someplace, you're finding another place. Corroborate that information, and don't just take our word for it or really anyone's word for it. Make sure that you're finding it in multiple places and that it is accurate. And I'm saying that because you may hear us, anybody else you're listening to, be like, oh, this is the best place to go. Don't trust, verify, look into it, and make sure that you are comfortable with the material so that you know that you're getting the appropriate information. And obviously we have experts that are involved with C4, but you should make sure that you know that we're experts as well by just going through and kind of like double checking. So I just think that's important to always put out there. So go ahead, Dirk.
No, absolutely. And the information is always changing, right? So, like Jessica said at the beginning of this, we went through this massive effort to review and update all of the data in the exam and the training materials and stuff. And then we published, the training guide and the training videos, which we'll just show here as well, right? There is an entire training prep course that you can also take that includes sessions by members of the CBP committee and sessions by members of the original C4 founders and some other experts in their fields. And but all of those things, right? I mean, you do those things, you publish those things, you put those things out there for the world, and 2 weeks later something has changed, right? So it is important, yeah, to make sure that this is really good foundational stuff for preparing for the exam, but it is not it is not the end all be all. And yeah, so exactly what you were saying, Jessica.
Okay, great. So Dirk, you are currently showing our a link to our Bitcoin professional exam prep course. And so everyone on the committee worked together to create these materials so that people that are studying are able to find the information in one place and make it easier. We recognize that not everyone can afford to pay for the materials, which is why we do these webinars as well, to make sure that there are resources that are available. The course is directly related to what's on our study guide and what's in the prep book. So it was basically written, designed, put together, recorded by the people who wrote the CBP exam. So if it is something that you're interested in learning about, this is a really good place for visual learners. For those who prefer to read, we also have a prep book that is more succinct, but it has the same information. And it really depends, I think, on if you're more of a visual learner or prefer to read, and that should guide you on what you decide to do. I think the course and book are both entertaining, but I'm a Bitcoin geek, so that's probably something to take with a grain of salt. But I do think that it is something useful, and it takes you from being a total beginner. So if you don't know any of the terminology, you're not sure what Bitcoin is, does, why it even exists, this can take you from the very first look into what money does, what currency is, and how we got to Bitcoin, what that history looks like, and then what all of the little bits and pieces are that make it something that is changing the world.
Not to be pedantic, but when you said the people that wrote the exam, I think we should adjust that to the people that updated it, because there was a ton of legwork that came in before we came on the scene. So I just want to make sure that if any of them are watching, they're not like, what? Because there was a lot of work, and we have taken it and ran with it, that's for sure. But that was just to make sure we don't get in trouble with any of.
I mean, I wrote the whole thing by myself. It's all about me. I mean, is that what you're saying? No, just kidding. Yes, that's a really good point. It did come, there is a rich history of the people who did it. I will say though, like Michael Perklin, who helped write the exam, all of the board members are a part of this material. So it was kind of fun, I think, for them to see how it's changed since they originally wrote it and the things that are different. And, they all have to become CBPs every year or every 2 years as well. So they're taking the exam with the updated information too, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, and the page here, I think I'm sharing the CBP exam prep book page now. And that kind of gives you the categories that the prep book covers. These match up with that original CBP study guide. So it all ties back to kind of the same areas, the same topics and areas. And these are also the areas that are all covered by the training video. Like Jess said, the training video and the exam prep book can kind of go hand in hand as well. They cover all of the same material. So.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point to talk about languages and how it's important to have content in more than one language and how that's something that we're working towards. We can talk more about it later as well, but I do want to point out that the CBP exam and prep book are available in English and in Spanish, and it is something that we recognize as something important to have in more than just even these two languages. So if you were to go on our website and maybe you take the course in English, but your first language is Spanish and you want to be able to take the exam in Spanish, that is available. Obviously, Bitcoin is something that's universal and we want it to be something that anybody can use our resources to learn about. So that's something we're pushing to do as well. But so Bitcoin exam is currently in Spanish. And so check out the book as well. We're very lucky to have amazing volunteers that helped with the translation of this. I think it really says a lot about the Bitcoin community that people are coming together to volunteer their time in order to make the materials accessible to people who aren't just English speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also probably a good time here to just reiterate, right, that we've been talking about the CBP exam prep book and the training course, both of which we do charge for. We are, like Jess said at the beginning, we're a nonprofit, and this is just to kind of help keep funding actually the production of things like videos and trainings and that sort of thing. So also wanted to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about some of our free resources.
Yeah, free is best. Let's get into that. Yeah.
Yep. So way back in 2019, 50 years ago before COVID, we had a Bitcoin training conference. It was actually out here in Denver, this one. There was one a couple of years before that as well up in Toronto, looking always at opportunities for doing things like that again. But we recorded all the videos that come out of that. And those are available on YouTube for absolutely free. And I'm going to let Anita jump in here, maybe just kind of talk briefly about Andreas's video and what it covers, because it's a lot of the same stuff that her own material is covered.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. Yeah, I gotta say, this is one of the best videos of Andreas, really a great guide about Bitcoin. And in 2 hours, he's covering the most important topics for beginners, but I think also for advanced Bitcoiners. There are still things that many people don't know. And to be honest, I used parts of that video in my own book to be sure that I am factual correct. And Andreas is a great explainer, and I can recommend to everyone all his videos on YouTube. It's also where I started in 2017. And in this video, you are going to learn about the history of money, the history of Bitcoin, how the price of Bitcoin is derived, the basic cryptographic terms, what are hash functions, what is encryption, why do we need digital signatures, and how do we use them in Bitcoin, what's a Bitcoin address, what is a private and a public key, how do transactions work, what does the blockchain do, Bitcoin's units from a Bitcoin down to Satoshis, how you can earn, buy and sell Bitcoin, how you safely store it, what a UTXO is, and also recommending how wallets work, which different kinds of wallets there are for different security, how shall I say, strength, using a smartphone wallet for small amounts of Bitcoin and things like that. And also how you can start accepting Bitcoin, for instance, for your products or your services. And I find that this is really a great resource and a great free education about Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's funny, Anita, hearing you go through all the topics. I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost forget all of the things that come together that you need to know about Bitcoin. But hearing you go through it, I'm like, yeah, this is like a great introduction to what's on the CBP. And then I hope once you watch it that, people fall down that Bitcoin rabbit hole. I heard it explained yesterday by someone as being bit by the crypto bug. And I think once that happens, these terms that people might hear like UTXO, okay. But once you start to see how it's all connected, it's like it becomes really exciting and fun. And I think that's when all of these words and abbreviations that you were talking about come together and really make this amazing picture, which is what people then want to learn more about.
Exactly.
And when you want to learn more about it, you can dive a little bit deeper. And so this was the training conference or training course that I did at the Bitcoin training conference back when I had a little bit less of a beard. It was one of the most fun things I've ever done. So it was also kind of a double session, in order to just kind of supplement what Andreas touched on in the cryptography stuff, I did a whole history of cryptography, right? So, basically the history of cryptography and how we wound up with the protocols and the algorithms that were necessary for Bitcoin to exist, for blockchain to exist, and for that to be a thing. And so it was a super fun, super geeky course. I'm not a cryptographer. I'm just a cryptography nut. So it was just really fun. And we go through things like the ancient substitution ciphers, the really simple stuff, the things that you can do in your newspaper to break codes and stuff like that, through exactly how Enigma machines work and using virtual Enigma machines, and then through all of those things that are covered in Andreas's course, the various trapdoor and hash algorithms and the things that really make Bitcoin work, digital signatures and that whole process, the public key, private key infrastructure stuff. And then talk a little bit even about the future, right? And what happens when we have quantum cryptographic or cryptanalysis systems that can break the current cryptographic algorithms, and what the future of cryptography looks like with lattice cryptography and that sort of thing. So really, really super fun, but also, I will admit, super geeky. And but if you go down that rabbit hole, it's kind of a good next step in going down that rabbit hole.
I mean, Dirk, you're the only geek on this call. Clearly, I'm extremely cool, so I'm sorry to
right.
sorry to hear about that. But what I will say is, with cryptography, for those of us that are kind of outside the computer science world or haven't learned much about cryptography in the past, for me, when I first started learning about Bitcoin, cryptography was really scary. I remember studying for the CBP exam and trying to figure out what the difference is between symmetric and asymmetric cryptography, and really felt overwhelmed by it. And now it's something that is like, I very easily can talk about it and I get it. And so if you're watching Andreas's course or watching Dirk's course on cryptography, I would say if some of it goes over your head to start, keep with it. And once it clicks, it is just absolutely fascinating, which I think is where the geekiness comes in, is it really is really, really cool what cryptography has done and what it can do, and what that intersection is and how important it is to blockchain technology. So it might sound like, it probably is geeky. We probably can't get away from that, but I will say it's also really interesting and something that I think once you start to spend that time to look into, most people will see how important it is and really appreciate what it has done for, I guess, our current world.
Yeah, obviously, I agree with that completely. I think it's, most people think about cryptography and they just think about secrets, right? They just think about secret messages and keeping secrets. And cryptography really, it's what fundamentally empowers blockchain. And that's a whole different thing, right? That's why one of the reasons I think it's so cool. One of the reasons I have this poster behind me, right? Because I think that the elegance of how it's used and what it creates, right? We, like I said, it's not just about like protecting secrets, but the fact that all of Bitcoin, all of cryptocurrency, all of blockchain doesn't exist without it. And so this is like really cool applied functionality of something that traditionally has just been about keeping secrets. And I know that you are a geek, Jessica, because one, you were there in my class, and also because you help organize all this stuff. So you can't trick me into thinking you're cool.
I don't think I've ever tricked
cool. You are cool, but you're also a geek.
I don't think I've ever tricked anyone into thinking that before, which I'm good with. And then actually, okay, so what you're showing right now on the screen, Dirk, is about mining and how Bitcoin mining works. And I actually had a call with Paul Puey yesterday where we talked about custody and kind of getting started in crypto. And one of the reasons I knew he would be amazing to talk about that is because of how he explained mining in this session from 2019. And so we recognize that the material we're talking about is from 2019. So the things that we're talking about right now haven't changed in terms of what is happening. Like the foundational aspects still are the same. So the content is still worth watching and learning about. And I think how Paul Pui explains mining in this video, and he talks about, I think Andreas was the first one that discussed this, but the idea of a Sudoku puzzle and how that relates to mining. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, cool, watch the video. It's fascinating to see what the connection is there. And I think it's a really good way to explain mining. So check out that video as well if you want to learn more about it. And then I think before we get into the resources that are outside C4, Rodney, do you want to talk about what you discussed? I know that you always joke that like what you do isn't that exciting, but it's also important. So would you talk about your session?
Well, before we jump forward actually to that, I think for me, I just wanted to say, right, so after cryptography, or maybe right alongside cryptography, I think mining, for somebody who's just hearing about Bitcoin for the first time, mining is probably one of the most like weird things, right, to talk about, right? And so I think that's what's so fascinating about this, right? And I don't know how you feel about it, Rodney or Anita, but yeah, I mean, I was like, when I first started talking, to folks about Bitcoin, well before I got actually involved professionally in it, I was just like, what are you talking about mining? I mean, it's just this bizarre concept, right? Of how it all works.
Yeah, wrapping your head around proof of work at the beginning was, it's kind of also like a double-edged sword, because you need to understand more about how the blockchain functions and how transactions are verified, and like all of the pieces that go into the blockchain. Mining is a big part of that and how it functions. So like you have to understand the baseline in order to understand kind of the value of what proof of work does in the mining mechanism. Mining is an interesting term, and I think until you kind of are able to draw the parallel between traditional like digging a hole mining and how kind of electronic computer mining works, they're very like opposed to each other. But once you start to understand the inner workings of a blockchain and how Bitcoin works and everything else, then you start to kind of build on top of that, and it starts to make sense. But yeah, from a 10,000-foot view, and you're kind of new to everything, this is a very foreign concept and took me a bit for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
So everybody's favorite topic. We joke at Outlier that
Rodney had more hair. I had less and he had more.
That's true, actually, the curls. We joke at Outlier that we are professional outcasts. So we talk regulation to Bitcoiners and we talk Bitcoin to regulators, and nobody is our friend, and that's okay. Somebody has to have these conversations and somebody has to do the work, and we've been doing it for quite a while and enjoy it. So you want to talk like nerdy and geeky, right there with you. All sorts of different types of nerdy geeky. So I did a talk generally on AML and fraud for crypto generally. So the thing about regulation is very jurisdictional. So when you're looking at a particular regulation, it's going to really only matter in the country that you're operating. This is odd because there are a lot of different countries and Bitcoin can touch any of them. So it's really weird because you're having to apply this small subset of rules based on where you're operating, where your customers are, and things like that. So this talk was generalized and kind of covered the overarching theme of what the Financial Action Task Force, which is kind of, I want to say the governing body, but they set forth the recommendations which a country has to follow. And then members of FATF will kind of check each other and see how they're doing. And this is the world of kind of AML legislation, AML being anti-money laundering, in case anybody wasn't sure. But this talk was generalized throughout the 2019 BTC conference. I'm pretty sure there was actually like 4 regulatory talks, which is still kind of odd to me. And the longer I keep the longer I keep talking in this industry, the more people are in the crowd, and that's really weird. Like I remember for anyone that's seen it, the famous kind of Andreas video or photo of him on stage, and there's like 2 people in the crowd, which in all reality, there's actually a whole bunch of people just outside the photo that you can't see, but it looks like he's talking to this big room full of 2 people. That was our crypto talks and regulatory talks back in, in 2015, 16, 17 and stuff like that. There were a handful of people, nobody really cared. Now, we're kind of getting to standing room only in some of the stuff that we've done, which is really, really interesting and kind of speaks to the direction. But if you want to like nerd out on top of nerding out and like extra nerd out, there are a few different talks at the BTC training session similar to this one. My business partner Amber did one. Peter Warwick, another member of the the CBP committee, also did one. And I believe Peter Van Valkenburg did another one. So a couple more North American centric. Peter's is very American centric, but lots of interesting topics to kind of wrap your head around the regulatory environment. And like as an FYI, from when this video was recorded, everything has wildly changed, including regulation, including Bitcoin, including pretty much everything, including my hair.
And well, you can see your current hair next week at a different presentation you're doing, right, Rodney? With TCAE, there's going to be a conference next week. I just put the link in the YouTube chat, but Rodney, do you want to explain? I'm actually going to be on it too, but do you want to explain what you're going to be talking about a little bit and how it relates to this? Because that is also going to be a free resource.
Absolutely. TCAE, for anybody that wants anything to do with AML, is a fantastic resource. It was originally dubbed the Toronto Compliance and AML Events, but then COVID happened and it rapidly turned into this global network of AML professionals that are like super supportive. Susan Ismaili, who's the kind of the founder and leader, is just a wonderful person and really good at pulling people together. So what's happening next week is something that she pulled together in like a month. And it's like the list of people speaking is phenomenal. I am doing a panel on kind of regulatory expectations. So in Canada, the regulator here is FinTrack. So it's similar to kind of the FinCEN in the US. And criminal investigation expectations with the RCMP. So I'm being joined by Joseph Yuso, who he's got a bunch of titles and works at a bunch of different companies. He's probably like one of the most knowledgeable people I know in Canada when it comes to AML and crypto. And then a member of the RCMP is joining us as well. And we're going to just kind of talk through what we're seeing, what examinations are looking like, what we can do to make the RCMP's job easier when it comes to investigation and stuff like that, because a lot of the folks in this space are young and didn't have a tremendous depth of knowledge when it came to business. And so we've got a lot of people that just, have no idea what a production order is and what that means. I found out earlier this year that if you receive a production order in Canada, which is basically like a law enforcement request for information as part of their investigation, if you're the recipient of a production order, it's not about you. They can't ask a production order for someone they're investigating. So this was very interesting and kind of really good peace of mind for a lot of my clients that get them and they're freaking out. And it's like, it's not about you. They just think you have information. They just want the information about the exact situation that they're asking for. So this is kind of what it's about, is sharing information on the regulatory and legal side of things with the folks out there that are just like don't really know and don't really have anywhere to ask these questions to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good conference, and the link is in the YouTube chat as well. Also, I Okay, so you all that haven't been able, because we're screen sharing, you can't see Anita currently, but Anita's background is getting darker and darker because she is traveling. And I think that this just shows your dedication, Anita, to Bitcoin education. And so I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're doing, why you're in the dark, and how it relates to what it is that we do at C4.
Yeah, okay. So yes, I'm in Harare in Zimbabwe at the moment. Zimbabwe is the global leader in inflation. Zimbabwe had 500% inflation in July. And I'm just sitting here because a friend of mine, she has kept banknotes from 2008 and 2009. I'm actually a billionaire now. These are $50 million banknotes and $250 million banknotes. And inflation, hyperinflation in Zimbabwe is one of the reasons why people always at the beginning were talking about how Bitcoin can help people in Zimbabwe, because it's not inflatable. And I believe that this is true. And I believe that the people in the global south are those who need Bitcoin the most. Although, as I said before, we all can need it because now we have 10% inflation in Austria too. And so I'm traveling the global south this year to share my Bitcoin knowledge on the ground and to foster local communities, local Bitcoin only communities, to be able to do their own kind of education and community building and earning trust about what Bitcoin is, because there are a lot of scams here. And talking about free educational resources, I have been doing a podcast since 2018, and you were talking about the magic of cryptography before. And I have very interesting interviews with Adam Back, for instance, the inventor of Hashcash, which is used in proof of work. And also, I interviewed Andreas Antonopoulos several times, and we were talking about AML, and so anti-money laundering and know your customer identification and regulation right before. And I was just doing a talk at the Baltic Honey Badger conference in Riga about how Bitcoin enforces human rights and economic empowerment. And there I was talking about how Bitcoin actually, the crypto regulation excludes 2 billion people, and how it enforces human rights and financial freedom there. So that talk should also be on soon. And I also got a YouTube talk about how to start with Bitcoin and that. And yeah, last but not least, I was talking about my book before. Maybe I'm allowed to show it also. It's the second edition now. It's available on Amazon. It will be out as an audio soon. And just here on a side note, you can read it for free on GitHub.
I was about to say, Anita, I feel like you skimmed over the part where you are donating all of this for free, and you're going to Zimbabwe and other countries just because you really believe in what Bitcoin can do. And so this is kind of your mission. And so we've put a link on YouTube to the podcast and to your website, but there are a ton of free resources available out there. And yeah, if you can afford to support what Anita's doing, please do. If you can't and you are in the camp of people that needs to learn, she just shared with you how you can find these resources for free online. So definitely suggest that you take her up on it, because it is there, it exists, and they're, I think, excellent. Yeah.
And I think you can tell why we ask her and are so excited to have her be on the committee, right? With the commitment that she has and the knowledge that she brings to the CBP committee. I think there's no question why we would want her here. So
yeah, thank you.
Thanks, it's my honor. Thank you.
And do you want to talk just a little bit about Bitcoin for Fairness specifically, Anita, and the program there that you do?
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. So Bitcoin for Fairness is a non-profit initiative that I founded at the end of last year. And I wanted to build a bigger platform so that other people can contribute to the work I'm doing, to sharing the knowledge here on the ground. And I think it's important. I mean, we always say Bitcoin is trustless, but that is true from the technology standpoint. But from the human standpoint, you need to learn to trust Bitcoin in a way, because here are a lot of scams going on because people don't know about Bitcoin. They don't know it's a technology. They are in need of money, and so they believe the stories that people tell them and scam them into believing just another pyramid scheme is something like Bitcoin, and that they can earn money fast and much of it at the same time. So I'm traveling these countries, trying to find and identify Bitcoiners or people who are committed to learn about Bitcoin, who also are willing to share their knowledge with their own community, so that we really have grassroots adoption of Bitcoin on the ground. And I think it's important to come here, to show your face, to talk to people, to build trust in that new technology. And that's what I'm doing here in some of the Southern African countries. And I also plan on going to Brazil and Argentina in the coming months.
Awesome, thank you. And one of the another resource who is a member of C4 but not on the CBP committee. He's on the CCSS, which is the Cryptocurrency Security Standard Committee, and we've just released the exam for that's right live. It's all live, right? Yes, for the CCSA auditor exam.
It's live, and we already have some auditors, and audits have begun. So there are already some companies that have their cryptocurrency systems being audited by the Cryptocurrency Security Standard auditors that have passed the exam. So it is in motion. Long time getting here. Yeah.
So, well, that's Jameson Lopp, and he's just another really good resource on his website. Tons of information out there on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and in particular, you know, wallets and hardware wallets and all sorts of like just really good learning resources out there.
Yeah, and he links out to a lot of different like trusted resources. And like we said, always, you know, do research, check in what you're doing, but that's a good place to link to some of the different information. And it links to a bunch of other places that you can also find information that might not necessarily be his, but that he has looked into and has found credible.
So those are a lot of our key things. I was thinking maybe at this point, we just kind of open it up to everybody for additional things, whether it's other conferences or your favorite books besides Anita's or in addition to Anita's, Medium or Reddit threads you follow or people you follow or anything like that. There are, of course, the classic books for Bitcoin specifically. Of course, Andreas's Mastering Bitcoin. He's got the Ethereum one as well. Any other resources that anybody has that they want to mention, or like I said, conferences or people or threads or anything that they follow that they find to be useful for keeping up on everything.
Yeah, I would like to add. Sorry,
please. No, go ahead.
Okay, I would want to add Andreas's The Internet of Money, volume 1 to 3, because they are great books to explain why we need Bitcoin. They are not so technical. I mean, I think they are not technical at all. So they are good and a good entry lecture, like reading material. And also there is the Little Bitcoin book, which shows you the need for Bitcoin from a humanitarian standpoint.
Rodney, I like how you're.
Yeah, the Internet of Money books were great, and I really appreciated them because not everybody is as tech savvy as I am. Like my dad just got his first email account like 2 years ago, and when I send him an email, he texts and everything else. But when I send him an email, I have to text him and be like, "By the way, I just sent you an email," because he'd never find it. I got him the first volume of this and said, read it, check it out, and kind of, we'll talk about it the next time I see you, kind of thing. And he texted me back like a week later and was like, so I've put it down. I'm like, okay, that's fine, to myself, thinking, yeah, that's fine, whatever. And then he sent me a follow-up text because what he said was, it's so good, I don't want to just plow through it. He's like, I'm learning things, but it's also making me think about things in a different way. And so he's like, I'm kind of limiting myself to only reading like one of the sections a week. So I just don't plow through it. And then I think 2 weeks later, he texted me and was like, okay, so I just read the whole thing and it was really good. So it's a nice way to kind of introduce people who, you know, aren't going to go on YouTube and sit and watch a video or something like that, or feel uncomfortable buying something from a website that they don't know how to. A physical book in your hand is just, it's hard to argue with, and is like, you know, dealing with a generation that wasn't born on a computer. I find an easy way to kind of ease them into it and start to change their line of thinking to something a little more global and I don't know, empowering.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things I like about the Internet of Money books is that they are pulled from live talks that Andreas gave, kind of like in without having any sort of plan in his head. He thinks about it, but he doesn't, it's not scripted, is what I'm saying. So if you are more interested in watching something on YouTube, that is where they are all pulled from. So I'm all about multiple forms of educational material, so you can find it in either way, whatever works better for you. I wanted to ask, Anita, you said something about going to Argentina soon. Are you going for the LibitCon event in November? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be there too, meaning C4, and we're going to be doing trivia sessions about Bitcoin and I think Ethereum as well. We're going to be doing both, and it's going to be in English and in Spanish. So yeah, we're all about trying to get more information out there in more languages. And so I'm excited that we'll get to see each other there. That should be fun.
Super great. Looking forward to it.
Any other conferences anyone's going to that relate to Bitcoin, that either free online or in person?
Yeah, I would like to add the SATS conference, which is happening in Brazil, I think the week before LabitConf. And then, which I find very interesting, is the first African Bitcoin only conference in Ghana at the beginning of December. And yeah, I'm looking very much forward to those.
What is the first one called? I want to put links to it. I don't know if Dirk, you were able to find it yet.
No.
SatsConf, so like Satoshi's Sats
Yep.
Conf. And then, to be honest, I don't know the domain. I think it's maybe IO. I'm not sure.
I found the SatsConf one, so I'll put that one in the notes as well. Cool. Yeah, it's really exciting to get back to going to conferences to learn. There's something about being around other people and having that experience that I feel like makes it feel much more like real and tangible, like getting together with all these other people and seeing, there are people out there that clearly are still kind of poo-pooing crypto, but then when you get together with all of these people, it's like, okay, there are so many people in so many different places that are willing to come together and spend their time and energy because they so believe in this. It's really, I think, uplifting and motivating and sort of like proof that what we're doing is extremely important. And when you see people and you know that maybe they didn't know much about it at the time, and now they're, the first time you met them or whatever, and now they're into it. It's like, it's so rewarding to see how the conferences are growing and that people are continuing to stay interested in crypto. And like that provides a value, I think.
Where we are in the current cycle, it's important. Go ahead, Nia.
I just wanted to add the Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam is in October, so a conference in Europe. Yeah, that's it. I'm fine, finished.
I was just gonna say the like where we are in the current cycle. it's nice to be around people who are confident and believe in kind of what is going on, because there's so much negativity out there right now and doom and gloom, that it's helpful to have other people around you who can kind of keep your spirits up, and not look at a chart. So going out and talking to people will keep you away from looking at the price.
And,
I agree.
As I say, and one, I mean, this is not specifically Bitcoin, but it's local to me, so I like it. But more than that, it's massive, right? I mean, you want to talk about that enthusiasm, right? So the ETH Denver conference every year, which is a free conference to attend, there was, I think it was like 22,000 attendees this year. I mean, they could not, there were more people than fit in the buildings, and they had expanded it massively to start with. And it was just so many people, and being around that kind of energy is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely awesome. And of course, obviously C4 does the certified Ethereum professional exam as well. So we can talk about Ethereum.
Yes.
There's another, someone posted in the comments saying that there is Crypto Fest in South Africa on September 30th. So much like crypto all the time, there is never a shortage of conferences.
Yeah, which is, I think, really great. And, you know, the conference that Rodney and I are both speaking at next week, it's all online, has made me think that C4 should do, we're looking into doing a in-person conference sometime in 2023, but maybe we'll also do a online conference of some sort, just to have more content available that is more recent. So I guess stay tuned for that as well, because we've been waiting to do the in-person conference because of COVID, and obviously it's such a small nonprofit. If we do a conference and then we end up not being able to all get together, that would greatly impact our ability to continue to do free education. And so that is something to consider. But we do want to get back in person, and especially we want to train people for just to understand Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also to be able to pass the exams. And then also Dirk is on the Cryptocurrency Security Standard Steering Committee. And that is something that we are going to be increasing our education on as well, because that is something that I think is going to be changing. It already has started to, but is going to continue to change how people are trusting others with their private keys. And I think it's important to make sure that we know that self-custody is a great option, but it takes some people some time to get to that point where they're able to do so and feel comfortable with it.
So
and just to be clear, never trust anybody with your private keys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that steering committee
you might transfer crypto to them and they might hold it, but you should never actually give them your private keys.
Yes.
And the steering committee is the CCSSC.
CCSS committee, but yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of letters. I don't know. Are you trying to confuse me? Is this a trick?
It worked. That TCAE conference that you're talking about also is free. So anybody that wants to attend, it is free to attend.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, we should, I guess, probably close out now. I think we've talked about everything we wanted to. I think the only other thing was kind of what's coming next. And so Dirk, I don't know if you still want to show CrowdQ or if we should talk about that in a future session.
We'll do that in a future one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, upcoming, we'll talk more about how people can be involved in what we're doing. We love volunteers. We love people to help with what we're doing, both educationally and in the exams itself. We don't ever want it to just be, it started with a small group of people that wrote the exam, but that is not our ultimate goal. We want to spread it out so that more and more people that are a part of the community help design what matters in terms of what people need to know and what they should be tested on, because it can't be completely decentralized because it's an exam, but we do want the questions to be coming in and the content to be curated from more than just a small group of people. So stay tuned, because that's something that matters to us and we're going to be working towards in the coming months. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything that you wanted to mention before we say goodbye?
I think just what you've already mentioned a couple times with foreign languages, that would be a great place for volunteers, right? As we try to put both the training materials and the exam into other languages, so make it more accessible to people all over the world, because Bitcoin is not an English thing.
Yep. And Anita's doing the same thing with her book right now. I know it's in German and English, and it's being translated into, I believe, Portuguese, and Anita, something else as well, I believe.
Yes, Italian. I also have a raw version of Spanish, but it needs some work. And also I'm working on a 2-page brochure that should be, or the goal is then to also translate it to local African languages.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm really excited that there are so many opportunities for people to be able to learn both paid materials and free. If you have any questions and you watch this, you can put it in the chat or send us an email, info@cryptoconsortium.org, and we'll be happy to help you with other materials if you need to find them, or if you are struggling and want to take the CBP, let us know. We're happy to help those who need help. So please reach out to us. We're glad that you're listening and that you're here and part of our community. So thank you to our CBP committee members, Anita, Rodney, and Dirk, for being here on this call and for all the things you do for C4 and for Bitcoin. And we will see you next month for our next live stream.